Okay, how does all this tie into lifelong learning? Well, I hope you have realized at this point that what we're concentrating on is what you have learnt and how long it's taken you to learn that. So, people often possess, of course, competencies. That's knowledge and skills and attitudes which have been developed outside higher education. When you go to work, and other activities can all provide you with this learning. And this is called, if you like, non-traditional, non-formal, or informal. Nevertheless, it is extremely valuable. And because of this system, ECTS, and because we're actually student-centered learning or learner-centered learning, then we ought to recognize it in the same way as if you had attended a formal university program. And indeed, it should be awarded the same number of credits. Of course, you have to demonstrate in the same way that you have learned. So you might have to write an essay on what you've learned. After today, I might write several hundred words, and I might look up some references on the value of webinars. And having done that, I could take that along to my higher education institution, and I could ask them to award me some formal ECTS credits for what I have learned. So, for example, we sometimes get students coming onto our programs which have previous experience. For example, they might have worked as a cook, or they might have worked in nursing. And we look at what they've done, and we say, this is wonderful, you have learnt a great deal, and we will award you some ECTS points for what you have done. You have to demonstrate that you've learnt from that, but once you've done that, we can award you the ECTS points. And sometimes for our students, that means that they don't actually have to do one of the first year modules because they've already learnt about it. They could transfer credit from another institution, or they could demonstrate that they have learnt through their lives and what they have been doing. So learning outcomes from other learning contexts should be awarded the same number of credits as would be awarded in an equivalent formal program, following, of course, appropriate assessment. In this way, non-traditional learners benefit from the transparency and recognition which institutions provide using ECTS. This summarizes what we've just been talking about. Validating non-formal or informal learning includes successful assessment and recognition of the learning outcomes of the activity. And HEIs should engage fully in facilitating access to learners who are already engaging in professional life. When you're a qualified dietitian, your institution near to you should be willing to allocate you ECTS points, provided you can demonstrate what you have learned. And of course, this is really important if you're considering moving into a master's program, EQF level 7, because once you've graduated, you already have achieved a level 6, you now need to go on and work at level 7, which is what most of us do once we have qualified. But we have a slight difficulty. The slight difficulty is that higher educations across Europe do not easily award ECTS credits to activities from informal learning. Why is that? Well, it may be because there is no assessment associated with a short course that you might have done, for example. So it's difficult to evaluate the quality of the lifelong learning activity. For example, it might be difficult to actually see what level it's been taught at. Is it level 6? Is it level 7? And the course may not have any way of ensuring that your learning is recognised. These are the short courses that you might attend at a weekend or in the evenings. Sometimes higher education lack human or material resources to assess the lifelong learning activities. It takes a while to sit with somebody and try and find out what they have learned. And sometimes higher education institutions don't want to do this because it takes time. At the university here, we charge people for sitting down with them and going through what they have learned. But the outcome might be that they can skip 1 or 2 modules and save money that way. So we have to be open to this, but what would be even better is if you were going to design a course and it is going to be at level 7, but you are designing it outside the university for learners, that you go to the university and you ask them to credit the course. So we are proposing very strongly within the DIETS program here that higher education institutes should have the competency to award credits for learning outcomes acquired outside the formal learning context, through work, through hobbies, through independent studies, or indeed that they should be willing to engage with dietitians and dietetic associations to accredit the learning in short courses. The number of credits awarded, of course, should be the same as the credits allocated to formal education components. But I'm sad to say that many institutions still think that the only way a student can learn is if they attend a formal course. And you and I know that that is simply not the case. So what are we advising you to do? We're advising you to take a chance. We're advising you to be fully engaged as learner-centered activities. Plan your career. What is it that you want to learn? Do you want to specialize in a particular area? How are you going to do that? Do you want a doctorate? Do you want a master's? Because that can influence the level at which you begin to think about your learning outcomes. And then you need to look around. Are there any informal learning courses that you might do which could be accredited? National associations. How can you work with HEIs, higher education institutions, to make it easier for them to recognize your courses so that dietitians coming on those courses can be awarded ECTS points? And higher education institutions, you need to think very carefully about lifelong learning courses and how learning from informal areas such as work and life can contribute to those study programs, and how you can actually be courageous and award them ECTS points to reflect the learning that has gone on. So take a chance, think about it, and come back to us if there are any questions. So now it's your opportunity to actually let us know what you think about what we've just been talking about and ask questions, but also we have 3 questions for you. So Michelle, can we have the first question, please? Okay, so this is a question about whether HEIs in your country at the moment acknowledge ECTS, or lifelong learning, offered by other institutions, which could either be, of course, in Europe or internationally. Now we have so far 12 responses, but I see that we have 21 people that have joined us. So would the other few of you like to, of course it may be that you don't know whether the HEIs in your country can accept ECTS from other institutions. Okay. Ooh, isn't it fun how it changes? Well, we've got 15 now. Very good. So that looks quite encouraging, doesn't it, to those of you who actually want to take what you've learnt to your local HEI. And for those of you who are quite unsure, I guess you need to go and talk to them. Okay, Michelle, let's have the next one, shall we? Question 2. Do the HEIs in your country acknowledge ECTS to formal and lifelong learning activities? Sorry, to non-formal. So if you wanted to take what you have learnt from today, for example, or what you have learnt from a course that you've attended, perhaps run by the National Dietetic Association, or other conferences that you've been to. Suppose you've been to a conference and you've learned a great deal about a particularly special area of dietetics that you're interested in, and you took it to your higher education institution. Do you think that they would award you ECTS for your learning? Okay, 8 of you think it's a possibility. Michelle, is there an unsure as well? I can't quite see the rest of the screen here. Ah, that's better, thank you. Ah, yeah. Is it possible to make it slightly bigger? Oh, Anna Katerina is saying she's clicked, but it doesn't seem to appear. Okay. Okay. So we seem to have at the moment 9 people are saying yes, they think that's going to certainly happen. 4 think it's probably not, and 4 perhaps haven't tried, haven't asked, so are unsure. Okay. It's changing all the time. Okay, let's go on to the third question then, please. Right, now we need to make this a little bit bigger, please, Michelle. That's great. Do you think giving ECTS to all lifelong learning activities in Europe can be useful, both formal and informal, or non-formal? I think we have an overwhelming agreement that it's actually a good idea. That's great. Well, we think it's a good idea too, but now we have to encourage people to be very insightful and also to look a bit broader. Now, it's open to you. Thank you very much for answering those questions. It's open to you to make some comments, and I'm going to read those comments and then perhaps make a comment about them myself. And I'm sorry you can't engage in conversation with me, but if I go back to the top of Anna's, let me move that down a bit. Okay, Anna Catarina, Portugal. We need to be careful with the amount of ECTS attributed by professional experience. In Portugal, we have a scandal case. Yes. Only 2 subjects, a private university, the president and most of the teachers were from the same party. Okay, yes, exactly. We do have to be very careful, and this is why it has to be very, what we would call, transparent. It has to be very clear why the learning has been attributed, why ECTS points have been given, and it also needs to be very clear who is doing that. So I agree, we do have to be careful. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Have I missed any here? Anyone else would like to comment about what we've been talking about formal or informal learning? One of the things that perhaps we didn't mention was the need to make sure that you are very clear in what your learning needs are. Because if you're very clear, then firstly, you will know what you need to learn. And secondly, you'll be much clearer on how you're going to show what you've learned. So actually deciding on your learning outcomes, setting up your learning needs is a very important first step. Okay, I can see that several people are typing. We haven't yet seen what they've been typing, but we'll see that no doubt in due course. So Anna Katerina replies, in our HEI we can give more than a third, okay, more than a third on professional experience, but each HEI can do what they like. Absolutely right. So in some HEIs, they may say you can only have a third of the course accredited from another institution. So you can only transfer in for a third of the course. And in other institutions, it may be more than that or less. So you have to look. And Koen has said from Belgium, I think it should also be a responsibility of the learner to make clear the link between his non-formal learning and the objectives and competencies that need to be reached for ECTS recognition. Yes, exactly. Now you've added there an interesting comment about reflection. Reflection is a way of demonstrating what you have learnt. So I think what we're saying here, Koen, is that you need to actually talk about your own learning outcomes, how you've gone about to actually achieve that learning, and then how you're going to demonstrate that you've actually learnt anything. And of course that would be through reflection, through thinking about it and writing about it. So Dana wanted to know, is it possible to receive certificate after finish a lifelong learning courses? Yes, of course you can. Most courses will provide a lifelong learning certificate, but that certificate doesn't actually usually say whether or not it is worth any ECTS points. If it's worth ECTS points, then you will have to demonstrate what you have learnt on the course. And so a course where you demonstrate a learning outcome or several learning outcomes would in fact be one where you perhaps need to consider. So look to see when you're next applying for a course whether or not it gives you an attendance, that means you've just been, a certificate, or whether it gives you a formal certificate for what you have been learning. Now Karen then says, where can I find a list of schools who accept a European diploma? I don't think you'll find a list of those, because within the higher education area in Europe, every institution should accept a European diploma. What you need to do is to go to the nearest institution or the institution where you would want to study and ask them whether they recognize the particular European diploma that you have. But part of being part of the European higher education area, accepting the Bologna process means that you are an institution who recognizes ECTS points, you recognize the levels from the qualification framework, and therefore you are fully participatory in the transferability. We have Anna. Now, what about the rest of you? Are you all happy? Was it all clear? Is there anything else that you think you need to ask? And it's important just to say at this point that we are going to have this recorded presentation on the Diet's website, so you can have another look if you wish, but there will be a discussion board as well. So it's possible to ask more questions and have some answers. Anna Katerina wants to know whether we're talking about bachelor and also master and PhD. Yes, Anna, we're talking about the whole range, because the whole range is in the higher education area. So the Bologna process is recognized for bachelor, cycle 1, master's, cycle 2, and doctoral, cycle 3. So it will apply right across the board. And in some universities, if I think about the doctoral side, if you've been working in practice, but you've been part of research teams, or you've led research, and you have published papers, in some universities, you can take those published papers, the ones you've done, and write about the area that you've been working in and use the published papers as evidence of your competence for doctoral work. And you can be awarded a PhD based on publication plus some additional writing about the publications and why these are significant and how they have increased your learning. So it's possible also to have your publications recognized both at master's level, but also and particularly at doctoral level. Because remember, what we're looking at is learning outcomes and competence. Competence to actually achieve those particular areas that you